Okay, I'm just gonna get started with this. Okay, I'm gonna try and close the screen and see if it does anything. Is this still recording? This should still be recording. How are we looking? Alright, and we're looking good. Today I'm trying voice isolation for... Oh wait, voice isolation is not on. What the heck? I'll be right back. Okay, we're back again. Voice isolation is on. Let's try, how does it sound? There's a car going by. Was that too loud for you? I hope not. Wow, I'm pleasantly surprised. Voice isolation works very well. So I'm out on the trail, and I wanted to come record today. I'm just gonna get right into it. I listened to my podcast that I did the other day, and I'm already doing it. I notice I speak too fast and I have a lot of breaks in my audio. So I'm trying to reconcile my thoughts more consistently to where I can speak them as soon as I think them, rather than needing to think about them before I can speak them. That was pretty good. uh, I realized today a lot of struggle comes from not being understood and people not hearing you like you would like to be heard. Or I don't know if it's coming from your own self expectations or hopes or just being let down, you know? Um, a lot of the struggles we have are not individual to all of us. Like, they're definitely pretty common. It's hard for me to express my feelings because I just feel like, oh, well, they're not unique to me, so why would I need to share them, if that makes any sense? I hope that truck gets blocked out. Voice isolation is on. Trying this out, first time with voice isolation. Of course, I came to like a busy road, because that's smart, right? Um, my mom was watching a documentary on some bad things that happen in the world, and a lot of it seems to, she likes to watch those. Um, that was another thing I picked up on that's interesting, that we all have our interests, and some jive with us and some don't. Like my mom doesn't like heavy music, because it seems like it has like a bad response to her. But like for me, she likes to watch the documentaries on stuff like Dateline, and I just don't see I see the value of it, but I don't relate to it myself. And I feel like that same way that I feel towards that, she's probably how she feels about metal. I find that interesting that we both have like a interest in something that's like dark and like there's history behind, like I don't know what you would call that, like learning about unhealthy things. Not to say that metal is unhealthy, but like metal is about like the exercise of getting over difficult things. At least that's what it means to me, and that's what makes it interesting to me. So in that regard, I wonder what's interesting in those shows to her. That set aside, um, what we're gonna look in today was some more of my discography. I left off on end of summer last time, I think. Let me see. I'm gonna go back to A Sight to Behold just for a moment. That one was kind of a fluke thing. It started with the song Meridian, and didn't have a name yet. Um, it was a very dark song, but I really liked it. And then later that same jam session that day, I ended up writing A Sight to Behold, the name song or the title song. And that was kind of a fluke song. Like it was very strong in what it was meant to accomplish, and I didn't really plan it out. And yeah, that song means a lot to me. The way that I wrote it wasn't really like anything that I had done, and I didn't even know I was capable of that. That's why it was such a surprise, because it wasn't really like anything else I had done to some extent. Like, I mean, there was kind of like the more straightforward, like Satriani-ish song, the one Imperative, off of Electro Capacitorator, and that was kind of random too. Most of my songs are random, but yeah, like, I mean, I will improvise them, and then that came out of nothing to some extent. Like, of course, I'm inspired by something, but when I write, I don't when I have a writing session that I'm happy with, I end up sitting down and coming back with something that I really like and that I necessarily didn't expect. If I sit down and write something that know exactly where I expect, then I have trouble continuing to finish it because I know exactly where it's going to go and I feel like I've heard it before. And I think that also revolves around the kind of music that I listen to because a lot of mine goes all over the place in terms of genre, just once again to some extent. And I feel like that's not even as much the case as I thought. Like, I don't listen to much straightforward things. I don't listen to popular things. I have struggles with, in general, like with music, with talking with people, interest in general. If something is popular or a lot of people are interested in it, then I have trouble myself getting interested in it as well. I don't know if it's like this wanting to be exclusive or something, or feeling good on being like individual. Like, I don't want to be that way intently. Like, I'm happy that the way I am, but why is the guy in front of me just rocking out in his car? Oh, whatever. Um, like, I thought that I was more varied in my music listening, but at least as of the last few years, it has stuck to a very specific, like, the idea behind nothing is ever constant and it's always changing. That's kind of a paradox. What is a paradox, at least to my eyes, kind of. I don't know. Because change itself is a constant. Isn't that weird? So, even though nothing is ever constant, change is always constant. So, how does that work? And maybe that's not even true. Like, I don't know. Maybe these words are just too specific. Like, either everything is changing or nothing has ever changed. This kind of reminds me of how Devin talks about. I think I'm just fascinated with that. I think I really relate to him. Okay, this goes back to the being misunderstood thing that I was talking about. On the way over here, um, I was feeling. I realized I don't like to fixate on people because it definitely feels unhealthy. It seems to be how I work with a lot of things. Like, I fixate on it for a while, I learn it to the very depths of it, and then I get bored of it, and then I leave it behind for a while. And then I come back later and look at it with nostalgia because it reminds me of a past time when it was new. But it still means a lot to me after that, like, grace period of being bored with it. And then it's always just like a good memory after that. And but back to relating to okay, this one's all over the place, but I'm trying to just kind of keep my brain flowing without trying to overthink things. I'm letting myself overthink. I'm not trying to overthink my overthink. Um, this podcast probably sucks. um, okay, now I'm stuck again. Need to calm back. Let's talk about the albums again. Actually, no. I'm gonna pause just for a minute. Ah, so what I look for in people that I can relate with in my personal life, I don't always find that. And when I find that with people that I can look up to, then it seems like I follow that until I can't anymore. Like, I listen through their whole discography, or I go see them in concert, or the I don't even call it like the imposter syndrome ends. Not imposter syndrome, but like, remember how they say like don't meet your rock stars, don't meet your stars or something like that? That's never been the case for me in the sense of I've never been let down by meeting someone for who they are because it seems like the people that I'm interested in, it's not just the thing that they do, it's them that I'm interested in. That seems to That's why I struggle to connect with certain kinds of music because you can't see who they are for who they are. And the people that I do like to listen to or have interest in, that's why I connect with them because it seems like they're really great people because they show a lot of themselves. I guess that's what I'm trying to do here too, is because for me, this is the kind of thing that I would want to find to meet someone new. You'd want to hear what their inner, deepest, most thoughts are. Like you'd want to be able to comfortably talk with them. Like if they're not comfortable to talk about their innermost feelings, then how can you be close with them? And once again, maybe that's just the case for me, because maybe other people don't need that. Um, but yeah, so I relate with Devin a lot because of the story that he's told, let alone the music itself is up my alley. And maybe that's a bummer too, because there's probably a lot of people out there that I would really relate with, but then I don't get to see that because my interests don't align on the face value of it. So if I don't initially have something that will grab my attention, that's why I wouldn't necessarily get to meet them or get to know them, which is probably a lot of the people in my personal life as well. Um, because I've had a lot of like I'm overthinking things right now. I will probably do that before I talk to somebody. Like, oh, this is probably what they're about because they told me about this, or like they listen to this kind of genre. It's like, oh, well, they probably go do that, or but you have a way better chance of finding out about them if you ask them rather than just guesstimating your whole way through their personality. So that's another thing I've been trying to learn, which I think that was like the last month or two, that I never ask questions of people, like whether it's about them, what their interests are, or just like rather than being like, hey, do you want to go do this? Because that's, I don't know if that's ego based, like towards yourself, like, oh, I like doing this thing. Do you want to go do that too? Because then it'll please me. Like, it doesn't always have to be about like things that you're interested in. Like, that's always been, that was like kind of mind blowing to me to find out, like, oh, I never find out things about people that I care about. It's always just like, oh, what can we relate on? I don't know if it's just because it makes me feel seen or heard or related to or something. Like, feeling like I can relate to people, that feels great. I don't know if it's because it doesn't happen as much, but if I can relate to somebody based on a thing that we both like to do, that feels great. But the catch is that I have a lot of complex things that I like to do. And honestly, like from an empathetic perspective, that's probably the case for everybody. I guess my smart brain would try to like outthink it and be like, oh, well, there's plenty of people out there that probably have the same interests as me. So if I just go find them and ask them about like this thing, because if it's like, oh, we could go do Prague together, it's like, well, if I ask the internet, then I'm asking everybody. But like, you can't just ask everyone, like, hey, do you want to go listen to Prague? Or like, do you want to go for a run? Or, because it doesn't always work in your favor. That's what you have to learn, which I'm still trying to deal with because I know that's the truth. Well, maybe I don't. Maybe I haven't let go of that. I don't know if it's like a thing you have to agree with or not. Because I know you have to just like let things take their course. But you still kind of have like that thing of like, oh, well, I could always try better. Or you could always try to do this or try and do that. And I guess my goal now with music is trying to explore myself, find out what my motives are, why I do the things I way I do. Same with this podcast. I'm trying to make myself more apparent to others. I'm not trying to like please people for something I'm not or something that I am. But if I value people being honest with themselves, then I need to be more like that as well. And even if you're honest with yourself, like that isn't apparent for other people to learn from you. Not that you're like this teacher or something, but that, wait, excuse me, but more like, how are they supposed to connect with you if you don't give them anything to grasp onto? And this is the same thing that I've been struggling with from other people. Because if they don't give me anything to grasp onto, then how am I supposed to get to know them or connect with them or learn something about them? Like, you have to give that open hand. So I guess that's what I'm hoping to do here, even just for myself. Like, if I can let go and do everything in my part to make something possible, then what more else can I do? Like, that's the best you can do, is to just have an open arm and be like, here's who I am. Would you like to meet me? Do we have things in common? Like, we can hang out and do this, or maybe we can do this together. Um, okay, I guess I hit radio silence. Let's see. Doing pretty good. I can't believe how fast this goes. Um, 15 minutes in, and I've just been jabbering. I found this new band, Sunset Mission. It was on Instagram. I've been trying to not like be online as much, but when I think about not going online, then I just go online. And it seems like it kind of goes in periods of like a few weeks. And I'm glad I went into this podcast again today, even though I did it just a few days ago, because I'd rather, if I'm gonna like self-indulge myself in something, I'd rather, I might as well just come out here and like blabber my mind out than to just sit on my phone and like scroll and not do anything and just like laugh at a meme that I've already seen 3 times. You know what I mean? But long story short, I guess, I was on Instagram and it was this ad and it was like this music ad. And it was like, would you like to have a free DVD, wait, free CD? And it was like, whoa, what? Because I was like, I've been looking into physical media again. Okay, that's what I was going to talk about. We'll get into that. Um, so let alone, I went and checked out this band. And I was like, oh, this is actually exactly what I love. And it's Sunset Mission, Journey to Lunar Castellum. I guess I thought it was Castellium. Um, do you ever just make up things in your mind and remember it different than it is? Probably. I thought it was kaleidoscope key, not kaleidoscopic key. Um, yeah, it's very prog. The mix sounds great in headphones, but not in the car, which is interesting. Um, I've also checked out Casualties of Cool. I saw the video of that pop up like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and then I watched the whole video. It was great. I immediately bought it, and then had to go for a run and listen to it in the car. Because I found that another tangent, um, listening to music while I run, it distracts me because I can't focus on my like bodily processes. Not like poop, but I mean, I do that too during runs. Do a lot of stops. Um, but like this is probably not the best choice for, well, I don't know, to each their own. I put strapping on. That sounds weird. I listened to strapping with my speaker like 2 months ago on a run, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna run hard to this. But like that just made me run like 100% the entire way, and it did not feel good at all. And it kind of made me like not like that music for a bit. And I'm saying that lightly because I still absolutely love it. It's so good. I don't know why. Um, well, I guess I know why, but I don't know. I relate to the internal struggles that he has in that situation, and it gives me power to try and get over my own internal struggles. That's what it seems like to me. Um, because I relate to his weakness in that moment for Devin, and I think that's what's so inspirational to me about him is that he's gone through the hard things. You can see that very visibly. He's open about that, let alone in the past, but now in the present. And then you've also seen the other side of it. So now he's sober and he has the creative freedom to do exactly what he wants, let alone that it's just like crazy ideas, but he's unadulteratedly him or unapologetically him. And I think this is what has been so profoundly awesome to me, as in like within the last few years, because a lot of time I've been like well, for as long as I can remember, like you always kind of just want to appeal to people. And it seems like I don't know if he had to deal with that too, but I think he doesn't do that to some extent. Well, maybe not to some extent, like to all extent, because he it seems like he struggles with letting himself be seen because I'm talking about Devin still. He doesn't want to be seen because maybe it scares him, or it doesn't feel like he feels deserving of the things he's done. Like, I agree that music comes from, ooh, yeah. He was talking about how his inspirations come from things that he's picked up on over the years, which I understand this. I'm the same way. Like, you listen to an album and then the things you record will kind of sound like that album. Um, but he's like, oh, this isn't just like my trip. This is like all the things that other people have done too. So if you're just like, it's like this stream of consciousness that has already kind of happened in a way. And maybe this is uncomfortable for him. And I can see why, because I would probably be the same way. Is it also like, even though the things you pick up on are already like predetermined, I mean, in the way that like you can't choose how you were raised or something like that. Like that will shape how you are. What you choose to do with it is you, I would imagine. Like, I don't know how you would learn to not do something a certain way. And I mean that, like, say if someone like yelled in your face. Okay, this is okay. At Trader Joe's, um, there was this lady. She's like, "Oh, I need to find two products. Can you help me?" And I turned around, and then I was like, "Okay, sure." And she's like, "I need to find peas and edamame." And I was like, "Okay, the peas. Let's see, the peas are over here, and then the edamame is actually out of stock at the moment." And she just straight up like deadpan, like, I don't think she was joking. She just like looked at me and was like, "Fuck you." And I was like, "Okay." And she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to deal with it. I didn't mean to say that." And I was like, "Well, you gotta let your anger out somehow, so I'll give you that." And I was kind of just like laughing it off, but like only because what else am I supposed to do? Not even because I'm like backed in a corner or anything, but like what else am I gonna do that will not just escalate the situation? Like, if you're gonna give me like a BS response to being helpful, then I'm gonna give you a BS answer for you expecting me to flip out about it. So, how that wraps in with the creative impulses, how you choose to deal with the things that you experience, I kind of feel like that's you. I don't know if it's like driven by the things you've experienced, because this is like a recursive problem again, like a paradox kind of thing, maybe. Like, of course, you don't know who you are without having seen your experiences. Like, there's only ever one you. It's not like you can see, like, oh, this is me if COVID happened, this is me if COVID didn't happen. Like, COVID happened. You can't see the other side of you. Like, you can speculate. And this is the same for, like, how you grew up, or, like, friends you talked with, or, like, influences, or music you listen to. Like, I don't know how much of you still decides the same things regardless of your input. I don't know how that would work. Like maybe it's like a DNA thing, or in that case, it would just be like based on evolution if you're gonna go that route. So set that aside. Like, let's say for concept, the things that you experience are not within your control. How you choose to deal with them is under your control. The question that I have now, which I was just saying, is I don't know how much this is driven by those experiences and what you've learned, what to do or what not to do, or whether this is just you as a person. I don't know. And we probably don't know in general. But um pause again. Let me see. Refresh my brain. Okay. So yeah, I was scrolling online just before I went to do this podcast, and I kind of realized I was like, "Oh, I'm being unhealthy right now. I could just go eat dinner and then go to bed or like code or like watch more videos or scroll some more, or I could actually put away my laundry because I just did it, which that's a whole other thing because I struggle with doing things like that. Like, okay, say if you're like about to procrastinate something, my goal within the last year or so has been before you give yourself a choice whether or not to do it, yes, just do it. Like, don't try to put it off if you can. Not even like to just, not even to be good or anything. I think that's what I struggle with too. Say if you're gonna do something for the sake of someone else, that's where I have trouble with it. And it's like, oh, I should put away my laundry because it'll make this person happy. Or like, you should, I'm not saying should, like, I'm telling myself this. Like, the reason it is good to put away laundry is because it will help you be healthy. It's not because it's the good thing to do, or it's because it's what you're supposed to do. Those may be true, but that's not, for some reason I have this weird thing where it's like, oh, I'm supposed to do it, so that's why I don't want to do it. I don't know if that's the same where it's like, oh, I should go to school and then I will get diploma and this is the easy way because then it's assured and it's like safe, or you should go to this party and then you will meet these people and then you will have friends. It's like there's a lot of shoulds and like good and like what you could be doing, or and there's this channel I found, I think it's Danielle Lynn, and she was talking about like resonant yeses. I've been trying to do more things like that where it's like that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Like I went and did this podcast because it seemed like it was, I've been wanting to do this, and from past experience from like last week, it really felt great to do it and let these thoughts out rather than just like mind-numbingly scrolling and keeping them away. Like if you just let them out, like who cares if anyone listens to it or if anyone likes it? Just get it out. Like for the sake of your own health, it feels great. Like it doesn't need to be to please some other people. Like I'm gonna go to the gym because then I'll look attractive and then I will like then I'll get to meet girls. Like that is what you want, but that's not why you should be doing it. Does that make sense? And I'm asking me this, I guess. Maybe you too. I don't know who you are, but and I'm talking about like the listener, not like some weird alter ego or something. Unless maybe I have that. I don't know. What am I talking about? Um, I want to pause one more time. Yeah, so like think of yourself as someone that could care for you. That's another thing that I realized, I think on a run maybe a month ago or so, that you can be there for you. I don't mean that as like a, oh, always be there for yourself. And like, I don't, I share that with Devin too. Like, I don't like being the giver of advice or something where it's like, oh, I have the truth. Like, here's what the answer is to everything. Like, that's not what I'm saying. What's worked for me, dang, I just lost my thought. I'll be right back. Pro tip, this podcast thing is awesome for going through your ideas. I know this is a random break. I'm still in the same session and everything, but I just scrolled back to see what I was talking about and I totally picked up on where I was. So for learning about your internal thoughts, you can just record them because then you can scroll back and see what you were losing track of thought on. Um, it was about the caring for yourself as if you're your own friend. Like, use empathy towards other people, but towards yourself as well. I don't know if this is like a self-care thing, but and maybe it is. Like that makes a lot of sense too. Like maybe I haven't understood self-care until now. Like, oh, okay. Self-care and empathy. That's an interesting idea. I wonder if people that lack empathy also can't self-care. That would make a lot of sense as well. But I don't know, because it might not be true. Because there's a lot of people that are empathetic but don't care for themselves. That could be a different scenario though, because there could be it's like a Venn diagram of like people that care for themselves, and then there's people that are empathetic. And maybe you can, does that make sense? Like somebody, hopefully that makes sense. I'm gonna go back to the thing I was talking about. Yeah, caring for yourself as a friend. So just like ask yourself, like, if someone was standing right next to you and they were what you would hope someone else would say, what would they say? And then use that answer as what you should do. So it's almost like using empathy to look at yourself and see what someone else would say if they saw what you were lacking in, and then see if you can follow that advice and if it helps you. Rather than just like, oh, what does my personal desire or like ego want right now? It's like, oh, I'm tired. I want a sandwich. Like that might help, but like if you could be your own therapist, what would the therapist say? Does that make sense? So, yeah, it's like I'm hungry. I need to eat. It's like, okay, that might be true. Like, but then like say if you like wake up and you're like cranky all day. It's like, okay, maybe I didn't go to sleep early enough because I was scrolling too late or like coding too late or something. It's like, well, why was I doing that? It's like, oh, well, somebody was like mad at me at work yesterday. So that's why I stayed up too late because I was like trying to like ignore the feelings or something. So then that's why you're tired the next day because this whole other snowball of things. So just like analyze your life as if you're someone else, as if you're looking at it from someone else's perspective. Um, that reminds me of, I think I thought of this about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, because it's been a while now. And it's been mind blowing. I don't like cursing a lot. It's been fucking awesome. Um, live your life how you want to live your life now, how you would want to look back on it in the future, if that makes any sense. Because you can always, like, there's things you want to do now because it makes sense for you now. But say, like, picture what you would have want to have done when you're old. That's the answer. So, like, picture if you now was like 80 years old. What would you be like? Oh, I didn't get to do this. Or, oh, I wish I would have said this to them. Or like, oh, I wish I would have asked her out. Or like, oh, we could have gone on that hike. Or, oh, I wish I would have said sorry. Or I wish I would have said thank you. Or I wish I would have said hi a lot more. Or said, let's go out to dinner. Or, you know what I mean? Like, what is, like, okay, I want to get deep and I don't care because I think this, so I might as well just spit it out. Like, my grandma, she has dementia. And I value so much what we did together over the years before she had it. She's so awesome and I love her so much. She's still here with us, but she's not the same, and that's okay. She's going through it very well for the strength that she has, and I'm very proud of her. And um that hit me very hard, like when that started to happen to her. That's also when I found strapping. I don't know if that kind of worked out at the same time. Like I think strapping really was a thing that let me vent my like anger of being sad. Like Devin talked about like how anger is just like fear. And for me it was almost like sadness. Like I didn't know, kind of like how I talked about I can't handle emotions or I don't know how to use my emotions well. I don't know if that's like how I'm not good with lyrics and things like that. I'm trying to like listen to lyrics more and like understand people and how they feel, understand myself more and what I feel and just be honest. Um Strapping was my outlet to like feel something for when I didn't know how to. So, like, I remember just like when she had to move to the care center, it was just like mind blowing. We were like, wow, like, we don't know how much longer this is going to be. And she's still here today. And it's been, what is it now? Like a year and a half. So, we thought it was going to be the end. And she's still here. And we're thankful that she is. We just hope that she doesn't have to deal with this stress any longer. Like, she still has like happy laughs and things like that. Like if something is funny, you can see a side of her again that you don't get to see anymore. And it's hard because she's like trapped in there. You know what I mean? Like her love, like it's there. and she's struggling through this. Like, I don't know if that's still her in some ways, but I just hope she that was my biggest thing like then. I was like, I want her to get better, but we know that's not going to happen. So I want her to just not have to deal with this anymore because let alone I always like we always say if she could see herself today like a few years ago, she would be like, "Oh, like just let me go." Like not that she's like on life support or anything. I'm not saying like that, but like she would feel so bad. Like she's so independent. She lived on her own for years, and like she would I think she would feel bad that we're caring for her, even though we love her and that's why we do that for her. Like it's always brought up. She cared for us when we were kids, like the family in general, like my parents, and so we're gonna do that for her. And um I think that might have been like a big thing back then. Like I don't know if I had the first one was the pandemic. When I realized like, oh, I wonder what life would be like had the pandemic not happened. I just like kept thinking that. So it was the pandemic and my grandma going through her struggles as it started to progress. It was you start to see the reality of things and you like wish it was different. But when you start to realize that you can't change that and it is what it is, then you realize how you see what you're going to turn into in a way. Like, I don't know if I'm going to have dementia, but you never know. So, in the event of like being in a confused state where like, oh, I don't know what my life is anymore. And I don't mean that lightly. Like, that's I have no idea how that is to go through. And I feel so bad for her and anyone else that has to go through. It's horrible. I don't wish that on anybody, let alone the families that go through it. It's been very hard for us. Very, very hard. And everyone's been so I don't like to speak bad words once again. Everyone's been so fucking strong. It's unbelievably awesome. And um yeah, using those examples, going through the pandemic. I'll talk about another time because I think um, I think seeing okay, I'm not even going I was gonna compare like, oh, going through what seeing my grandma went through like as a family member versus pandemic. I was gonna compare them. Like, you can't compare. Let's don't compare things, okay? Um Point blank, those have been hard for me. Those two things were very hard for me. The pandemic, it let down my expectations of like, oh, this high school is gonna be cool, like this. Like, it was great for the first 3 years, and then it just tanked. It fucking sucked. And I mean that in like everyone tried very hard, and it was exactly as good as it could be, but it just, you know what I mean? Like you lose something. And so going back to what I was saying before, you start to realize like do things while you can because you can. And that's what I've been trying to guide myself with. Like, just like how I was saying, like, oh, there's no more cross country meets. Like, oh, I wish I could have gone on that run because I decided not to go because I wanted to go home and play video games or whatever. Like, I never did that, but like I really liked to run. So that was always my thing. Say if it was like, oh, I'm just gonna goof off and I guess the closest example to that is I didn't want I was too my fears of meeting people was too strong, like early freshman year to do cross country. Like it just I didn't trust my instincts enough back then to want to try it. It was like, oh, you should try cross country. Like you love hiking, you love doing all these outdoor things. It would be great for you. Like, oh yeah, but there's competition. Like I don't want to compete. Like that you just get in your head and like, oh, you got to be on a team and like, oh, you got a schedule and it's like, it's like you're just coming up with answers because some fear. And now I'm seeing this. I didn't see this before. It was because like you'd have to meet new people or you didn't know how to interact with people. That was the case for me. Um, so now that I see why I do these things, I can counter it with, well, what do you want the opposite to be? Would you rather feel comfortable now by saying no to it, or would you be bummed that you didn't try it when you're not able to? And that is horrible when that comes up. So now I always, if I'm given the choice of being able to do something or not, then you would want to take that choice. Sometimes it's hard to still do that, like even with that in knowledge. Like some other people were talking about, like, oh, we're gonna go skydiving. And I'm like, oh, that does sound pretty cool. But I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to go. Like, I don't know if that's for me. Like, I know there's always reasons like, oh, it's fine. I don't like that kind of music, or it's fine. I don't want to go skydiving, or I don't want to do this. Like, why not just try it? You know what I mean? Like, there is risk involved with skydiving, but you could always try it. Um, okay, going back to the other thing. So, I'm gonna pause again, get my brain going. Yeah, so I think it was around maybe when I went to community college as well that I started to just feel like, oh, if I keep going on the track I'm going, I'm not going to be able to do the things that I want to have done. And there's like a few random things, like I wanted to build an NBT parser for Minecraft saves. Like that is so random. I don't know why, but for like years before, like when I had been playing Minecraft a lot more, like when I was younger, I was like, oh, I want to be able to edit files. I want to be like, I want to learn how to make an app. And all of these things came true. I think that's why the text editor at the time, Smart Text Editor, why that was so important to me, because that was one of like my first few goals on my own where I was like, I want to do this. And then I went and did it, and it does exactly what I wanted to do. And I was like so proud of it, to the extent where like I'd show people and like, oh, that was even before I did music creation, like I do Elkosaurus and stuff. But that was the first view of like, oh, I love this thing. And you show it to people and it's like, it's not their thing. So like, whatever, they're just not into it. And like, this would kind of set me back. I'm like, but do you see how cool this is? But they're like, yeah, so like, what am I going to do with it? I think that was the first peak of me realizing like, just because something's cool to you doesn't mean it's cool to other people. And now I'm starting to accept that. Like, it's great for me. It doesn't have to be great for other people. Like, they can be happy that you like it. And just because you like something doesn't mean other people need to as well. And that's okay. Um, but yeah, so I'm glad that okay, I need to step back a little bit again. Okay, big thought just came into my head while I pause. I took a little lighter tone with my grandma with where she's at. She is quote unquote like near the end to where she doesn't go to visits and things. So I don't mean that she's not on support, like not like it's at like the end. I don't know if I need to disclose all that, but like she is where she is, and there's only one direction from here, if that makes any sense. So we know how the outcome is, and her state with where she's at is good. I'll just leave it at that. Um, and we're happy we can still get to see her while she's with us, because we don't every day is a blessing, and yeah, we're gonna go back. Let's see. Yeah, so trying new things because you know. Okay, I'm confused again. I was saying you want to do thing. I think this was after like my mind is stuck on when I was talking about the text editor. I hadn't figured this out yet until afterwards, maybe like around being in college or for the small bit that I was. Um, just realizing like what are your priorities? Like doing things for the sake of doing it because it seems like the right thing to do, or doing it because it's a thing that you need to do in terms of like a life goal. Like someone mentioned this, I don't know if it was a video or podcast, or I don't even remember, but it was like if you don't let yourself do this thing, you're just going to ruminate on it until you die. Like it'll always be there, like, oh, I never got to do this thing. Like I never got to do that. Like, do you want to deal with that? Or would you rather just try it and be like, oh, that stinks. Like, that stunk. I'm never gonna do that again. Like, now you can just let it go. Like, that's one less thing to have to deal with. If you just try it, then you don't have to like ruminate on wanting to have tried it. And I guess that's kind of where I'm at now too. Um, and this kind of reminds me of programming, how you have early return statements in JavaScript. Okay, I'm definitely a jack of all trades. I love to cross pollinate things like this. This has been great to do too. So with meeting people and relationships, the faster that you can find incompatibility, it's kind of like an early return statement in a JavaScript function. If you can early exit with like if parameter one, if type of parameter one is not equal to number, return or throw new type error. Like you don't want to just run the code thinking that it's a number, then you're gonna panic. I know that's Rust, but like you're gonna have an error because you think you're trying to use a number. And oh, incompatible relationships will continue to run like how JavaScript does. Like you know how it's like number coalescing and things like that? Like you don't want to be in a relationship where things are based on coalescing. Where it's like, oh, I'm operating under the terms that this is a number, but it's actually a string. So I'm just gonna add plus and then like, oh, why is it 22 rather than 4? It's like, well, you're operating under the wrong conditions. So if you try to like have relationships with people where it's not honest in that way, you're gonna run into weird bugs like that. Like, oh, why did you lie to me in this way? It's like, well, you didn't know how they would react a certain way, or you put them in a corner because they weren't honest with you. Just a bunch of stuff. Like, if you can have early compatibility checks, you can find out whether you're compatible with people before it is too late. And it's never like too late. I don't mean that like in a bad, like, I'm just saying like communication is key. That's the goal here. Not to be like all fancy and like, oh, um, what were we talking about again? Uh, Speaking of that, JavaScript should have result types like okay and error, and then it should also have errors as values. I would freaking love that. Like if you could return that from a function. I was looking at a Golang the other day, and I love how they removed like they flattened the use of async functions because in JavaScript you have like red and blue functions, like Primogen has talked about in like some blog posts out there. Uh, I would love if there's a way you could have just like sync sync code. Wait, asynchronous code is synchronous first, and then you would opt in to using async, if that makes any sense. That would be really cool if you could do that at a language level. Same with like result types and errors as values. That's I want to make a language that has that. This is another life goal that I've kind of this might die off. You never know. Like the thing gets old and you give up. Or um, the NBT editor did exactly what I wanted to. I still want to do more, but kind of I don't play Minecraft as much. So moving on from that, the text editor is pretty much done to what I wanted it to do. I use VS Code now, so it does more than I used the text editor for originally. Sorry if I talk so fast. I think I found that I do this a lot and people don't understand what I'm saying. I've started watching videos at like 1.5x as well. Not to be cool or like to be some Giga Chad, even though I'm probably like that in some weird ego way. Um, like a wee guy. Um, yeah, just roll with the, roll with whatever the fuck your brain is thinking at the fucking moment. Fucking. Sorry, YouTube. I should probably get rid of that. Um, uh, Bring it back like 50 freaking times again. Um, Live your life how you want to look back on it. Like, what do you want to be looking back on when you're not able to have choose that as an option anymore? Like, say if it's like, I'm gonna go. This sounds. I don't know if this is weird. It's like, oh, I never got to meet a girl in my 20s or something. Like, if you do that when you're older, like that's weird. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't have there's no way to have like that's one thing like I never had a relationship in high school and I'm kind of bummed about that. Like not even just like, oh, I wish I could have been cool and like had a relationship in high school, but like, well, maybe it is that. um And maybe that's lame, but it's like having like that unknown, like young thing. I kind of like the thought of that sounds cool, but I can never have that. Like I can have that in my age now, in my 20s, but the opportunity for like that kind of thing when you're young, that's over for me because I'm not that age, I'm not in that scenario anymore. Doing that now would be weird, understandably, because don't do that. Like that's weird. You don't want to meet younger people like that unless they're like your age. And I'm saying that like I'm 22, like there's only a certain bound of people you can meet. Like logistically, like that would be odd if you were with other people. I agree. So just like do things while you can because you can't always do that. Like I'm gonna have more like let alone inevitably, but also like my goal, like I'm gonna have more responsibilities when I'm older. So me doing this podcast, like I'm not a podcaster, but here I am, like, and it's really great. And I'm not a podcaster. I'm not a musician. I'm not like a video editor. I'm not a photoshopper. I'm not an artist, but I am. You know what I mean? Like, I'm also not a programmer. I just kind of do all these things. That's this weird thing where it's like, I never feel like I can be what I actually am. For some reason, I don't know if it's like an image thing. Like, I can never, maybe it is like a commitment thing. Because I know I've never had like a commitment in that way. Maybe that's why it's scary too. Like, committing to be like, I'm a programmer. Like, I program, I say that, but I'm not like, oh, I'm a programmer. Like, why? I have trouble, like, oh, I'm a college student. Like, oh, well, I go to school. Or, like, I have trouble with like labels or something, which I know a lot of people have been mentioning that too. Like, maybe that's like self confidence or something like that. Um, yeah, I'm gonna wrap this portion up. I'm not done with the podcast. This is gonna keep going probably. Um, this is an awesome podcast, by the way. Like maybe not to listen to. I don't know. I don't know what you're into. If you're just into babbling like this, I certainly probably am. Like I would listen to this. Check out Introverted Madness, by the way. He's a great channel. Um, Devin Townsend podcast. Excuse me. Yeah, Danielle Lynn. She does a lot of great stuff. Oh, also, I'm trying to be more like public as a person, not for just like some like influencer kind of thing. Like that thing I can't stand. Like I wanna voice my opinions, but then like be honest about it. Not for the sake of like being an influencer or like being seen or pleasing my ego. Like I just want to be honest because it feels great and I can connect with people in a more honest way than I would be able to if I was just like obscuring things about myself because I was uncomfortable. Like I'd rather just be open to where the people, like I was mentioning earlier, like give a hand to people so you can connect with them. There's a guy locked behind the gate over there because it's dark out and the gate's locked. This is really cool. Haha, not haha, because that sucks. But you should have known better. Park outside the gate, bro. Yeah, yeah. You know who else is parked inside the gate? Not me, bro. You gotta calm down. Um, I'm gonna go back because I was talking about something. Let me see. Ah, I remember now. Okay, so for a while I was kind of like I don't know about like ashamed or just like embarrassed. Like I've never really mentioned people that I listen and watch ASMR. Um, it's I use it for like relaxation and kind of just like being close with yourself, not in like the weird way, like not like that. Like just being kind of like how you were mentioning like how I was mentioning self-care. It's really great to just kind of it's a vibe, you know? Like yeah, it's been I don't think I fully figured out why it's great. Because at first I was like, oh, this is like weird. Like I don't know what this is that people are like doing. Um, but yeah, I definitely recommend ASMR. Like just set aside like whatever your notions are. It's like, oh, there's like this it's sexualized or um I don't know, just treat it as like feeling like cozy and like warm in your bed and like relaxing and being one with yourself. If you sound that sounds like fancy, but um I'm just trying to like using my overthinking for like my own helpfulness because there's people in my life where they don't let their overthinking be something that can drive them. They use it to where it will hinder them. And this makes me sad because I can see the potential where if you let yourself think through things, it really helps you, you know? And it's okay to like think through scary things. It's just thoughts. This is another thing that someone mentioned that I think it was a video or something like thoughts are just thoughts. Like it's not you. It's your experience. Like at least this is me talking now. Like it from what we were mentioning earlier, it seems like it's your experiences that would probably drive your thoughts and maybe your opinions. So once again, I don't know how that. I don't know what lets you choose what you how you deal with things. That how we were saying earlier, like that might be driven based on things that you experience as well. That car was probably loud. Um, yeah. So I don't know how much is driven by like your all of your experiences or like what you grew up with or just yeah whatever. We covered that now. I'm gonna go back. I was talking. Why was I? Yeah. So just check out ASMR. What was I talking about? I gotta go back. Um, yeah. So definitely check out all those people I mentioned, like just ASMR stuff. I really like those. I think it's like chi bowls. I don't remember. I don't remember. Not chia, but like chi, like QI. I might be thinking chi charging. Wrong thing, but like those copper or like metal bowls that people like rub and it goes like it goes like that kind of thing. Um, just being I don't know if it's like mindfulness or oh that yeah. So letting out my emotion through intense music and complex rhythms and things. That seems to be how I jive with things. And then also being like mindful at night. Did that car actually get out? No way. No freaking way. He's not moving, but I feel like he got out. Can't tell. I don't think so though. So being one that's how I use strapping. Like that's what's inspiring to me because I know it comes from an unhealthy place in Devon, which is very unfortunate. I'm glad that he let that feeling out. But what's inspiring about it to me is that it lets me feel in ways that I didn't know how to feel before. Like whether it's letting go of your sadness through like anger or like his other music, Empath, like being blatantly happy. Maybe Empath's not blatantly happy, but like the very happy parts, like that, it always felt like very weird to me, like in other things where it's like, oh, this music is very happy. Like, no, no, no. It's like, oh, it's just poppy or it's just to please people. It's like I was uncomfortable with feeling that, so I came up with a reason to why I didn't want to check it out. Like, I was talking to people today, they're like, oh, do you like pop music or like rap or and I want to like rap. I don't know if it's just because I want to relate with people or something. Like I just haven't found the thing that makes it interesting to me. Like and I want it to be because I've a lot I want to maybe it is wanting to relate with people. Like I want to learn oh they did get through the gate. Wow. There's a bunch of people that like it, so I want to learn why they like it too, and maybe I can learn how to like it as well. That's like my hopes and goals with things. But how did they get out? It was I don't know. Um yeah, I'm talking about the car that was in the gate. Um, yeah, so I want to make intense music, but not for the sake of like self-deprecation or like self. I don't want to use it to be unhealthy. I want to use it to like use. use it as a strength. Like I'll blast angry music on the way to work because it makes me feel great. Not because I like hate or something. Like that's the opposite. I really value how much you can relate to it because it allows you to feel when you can't usually feel. That's what it is for me at least. And letting all these thoughts out. Okay, I've already talked about that. Like I'm lending a hand so people can relate to me. That's kind of what I'm hoping to do. But not for like an ego thing because I'm doing this for me first and foremost. Like if this has 0 views, I'm not surprised and whatever. Like it makes me happy to be out here talking because I wouldn't have planned to do this. Like it just kind of make I thought of it and I was like, I'm gonna do it. So I'm carrying out my goal of being out here recording this because I'm trying to fly by the seat of my pants or like use instinct. That's another thing I found. I don't know if it was Danielle Lynn or somebody else. They're saying like use your instinct because well, I don't know. All I know is that I'm not good at instinctual things. So that's why I'm trying to be better at it. Like if you think of an idea, don't try to like talk yourself out of it. Just do it. Um yeah, just be kind to yourself. Okay, I'm gonna talk about oh, we're an hour in. Let's talk about some music now. We were talking about casualties of cool last. Looks like that was like 45 minutes ago. Let me see. I'm gonna pause it. Okay, let's talk about my music a bit more. Once again, let's talk about my music. Not like that. um, um, sorry, this is silence. I know it's probably annoying. Laboratory. We already kind of talked about that. I started experimenting on laboratory. I think I mentioned that before. I was trying to be, at that point, like, once again, like more instinctive. I guess with writing in general back then, like just following your gut, even if you don't totally like how cohesive it is or whatever, just like letting the creative part just go and see where it goes and like be okay with whatever comes out. That was that was the biggest thing for me when I started doing music like Elkosaurus onwards was don't have expectations for the outcome and don't try to change for what it's not. Because like say for when I just finished doing Harry, um well, was it Harry? I guess even Carpincho. I kind of had a Dunning-Kruger effect with Carpincho because I thought it was going to be an album that it wasn't, and then when it ended up not like fully fleshing out to what I wanted it to be, I was very like unhappy with that record. It was a bunch of like most of the demo songs and then like the 3 that I kept, the main album. Um it just wasn't what I wanted. And I was like, "Oh, I thought I was like over this finally. Like I thought I had outsmarted whatever I was struggling with." It's like it's always there. You just got to like keep yourself in check, you know what I mean? And I wasn't keeping myself in check. Like I wasn't taking care of I was doing a lot of music creating back then, which is good, I guess, but you can't push yourself too far. Like you get to a point where it's just too far. And you have to like keep note of that. And Carpincho and Duds was kind of around that point where I had been recording since there's a lot of cars out now. Um I don't know, since like January, I was just like nonstop writing in 2023 until what was it? Like almost August of from like January to August. I was just like writing. And like some of it was just like sorry for bad language again, just like crap. Like Orange Paradox. I was like, "Oh, this is cool because it's like dumb." So it's like it was like a fake version of Elkosaurus because it wasn't that I wanted to make something that was like a statement of being bad. It was just like, "Oh, I'm making songs, but I'm out of idea like I didn't know I was out of ideas, but like I was just pushing it and I was like, oh, it doesn't sound up to my par, so I'm just gonna release it anyway because I like to write music that's bad. So it's like this answer for things that just describes why like you can't get any criticism, which is another thing that I think I realized as I was doing with Elkosaurus. Like I think I was afraid of making like a bold actual statement because that's what I was afraid of. So that's why I made a bad album. Because like, how can anyone criticize a bad album when it's bad? So like, no one's gonna say it's bad. It's like that means that was successful. So it's like me writing a purposefully bad album in a way was being like too self-conscious to make a actual bold statement or like not being confident enough in your abilities to make a bold statement. That's another part of it too. Like I had made music that was much better before Elkosaurus. And like I didn't want maybe at the time I didn't want to make that or something, but like still like wanting to like really try to make an album, like let alone that wasn't the goal then. At least I don't think it was. Then sometimes like for Orange Paradox, like the goal was to make a regular album and it just wasn't panning out. And then you blame it like, well, I make bad music, so I'm gonna make it like I don't know if it's like boisterous or bolsterous or whatever. And it's like I'm gonna make it bold and like it's like there's just noises on there. Like that's not creative. And maybe that's like speaking from like other people's point of view. Like noises can be creative, but like you can tell like if something's uninspired. At least I can. Like sometimes like it'll sound similar and you're like, "Oh, this is just not coming from an inspired place." That's okay. Like you just need to take a break. You just need to something else is lacking here. Um yeah, so catastrophic failure as a human being. That album, I just went like, okay, that was like on the tail end of Orange Paradox, where I was like, I'm just gonna go back to like how Elkosaurus was, like unrelenting in the creation aspect of it. And it ended up turning into something that was different. Like Orange Paradox kind of just ended and turned into catastrophic failure as a human being, which is interesting. Um, and then I got like bored of my writing there. I was like, okay, I want to now that I've let out all this like free creative spirit and I'm kind of recharged on writing again. That's when so many bad decisions came out. When I started working on it, I was like, I want to funnel that same wild energy, but be intentful with it again. So I think that's why I really like so many bad decisions. Like I know everyone says like, oh, their newest album is the best, but that one like it was a very big standpoint for me. And Carpincho, I think, was really good because it wasn't what I thought it was gonna be, and it ended up turning out better than what I thought it was after I had written it. Like I was much more pleased with what it was than when I had finished it. And Duds was kind of just a statement after the fact when I had realized like I was running low on writing energy again, and it kind of just turned into like another creative thing after that. Um, there was people walking by, and I felt awkward of just not talking anymore. So now we're good. Okay. um, Duds was kind of like I'm gonna make an album because I know I need to let loose, and I still want to be creative. So it was kind of like a knowingly like I know I'm out of ideas, but that's okay. Versus like Orange Paradox was like I want to make an album, but like you just don't have fuel, so you're being like irresponsible with yourself. I think Sienna was even kind of like that too. It's like you just can't rush things. Like there's one thing of like having a deadline, and there's one thing of like not having a goal and trying to push something out from nothing. And like that's when it gets like irresponsible towards yourself. Like you don't want to be disrespectful to your mind. And actually, I'm gonna pause this for a second. Okay, I'm back again. So many bad decisions. I want it to be wild, but I wanted it to be listenable again. That was a big flaw that catastrophic failure as a human being had because there's a bunch of songs on there that I really like, but the album sucks to listen to. And let alone that when I had recorded it, I was like, I'm gonna mix it up. I think I had done this from I mentioned this before. So remember how I said the process of my recording is like part of the story? Like, oh, the story of how I recorded this is the album itself. So like the progress of me learning how to make music that's what the album is meant to represent. So ever since like Made in America, I always do that wrong. The order of the songs was always how I recorded them. And for the most part, I didn't remove songs. Like I didn't make that many bad demos though. Like I would kind of just make like the 5 or 6 songs and then like, that's pretty cool. And then, like be happy with what I made. But I wasn't being very experimental back then either. So that makes sense. Like, so the order of the songs was always how I recorded it, and I didn't really get rid of many things. And you can very much see that in Elkosaurus. Like the set list or the sequencing is exactly how I recorded it. And then there's a few demos that were just like I did not like listening to, and it's like this is not helping the album, even though this is meant to be like a horrible album that you don't want to listen to. I was like, you don't want to actually turn it off. Like you want to laugh. That was kind of the goal. Like this is meant to be ridiculous, not like what's the thing where it's like, oh, I'm doing this because it's gonna like hurt me. Like I don't want it to be that. I want it to be like, this is meant to be funny because it's like tongue in cheek, and you don't want it to just be like suck to listen to for the sake of it. Like at least that's not me. Like for me, that's no fun unless it's like the joke. And even like things like full bore, like that was a bit much. Like I really like the concept of it, but I don't like to listen to that. But the concept is like flawless. I love it. I don't mean flawless like perfect, but like okay, I'm not gonna counter myself. For what I was trying to do, it was exactly that, and it was great. But the goal did not line up with something that you would want to listen to on an album, which makes sense. So that's why it's on Arse, full bore. I'm talking about. Um, yeah. So it was everything up until I'm scrolling up my albums. Uh, I think about Centerland. I had started sequencing songs based on how I thought it would work. And I also was like, I didn't keep track of the order that I recorded them in, like while I was recording it. So like I completely lost the continuity, like let alone when I would listen back to things. But then even on the album itself, I would have no idea what the original order was. I found that this made it very hard to know the context of each song though. Even if I like would resequence it for an album later on, which I later found with things like Harry, because that's resequenced, but it's still similar to the original. Um, I find that I need to keep the original order that I recorded songs in, and then reordering them in post to fit the album, rather than like record songs and then like make up a story for it after. Like that doesn't work for me, at least for what I've done so far. Like it seemed very hard to find a sequence for the songs after they were just shown alphabetical. Like I could not figure out like, oh, this is supposed to go here and then there. Like I just would not know how it would work because I needed to see the original intent that I had. And then say for things like Harry, um mm, most of it was a certain like I want to add a list that shows the real original sequencing because Arse and Harry and a few of the other demos and stuff that was all intermingled. Um, and say something like Manic Lullabies. I think it was after Bunk, maybe. It might have been after. I don't remember. It was later on the album now, but I realized that there was like this two-sided nature to the album, and I didn't realize I was like, oh, this might work well sequencing wise because I kind of like hit a point in the album, like it seems like now around Burning Shed, where it kind of just like took this turn of like being positive, and I was like, wait, this was kind of like a metaphor that I was going through in my life that the album sequencing originally didn't cater towards. Like, so even the original sequencing itself wasn't providing itself to lending that idea completely. So after seeing this dynamic unfold with the original sequencing, I was like, oh, now I can more properly sequence things to where it will reflect this dynamic stronger. Because now I know what was empowering me to write this project and why it sounds the way it does. Why it sounds, yeah. Um, so then that made Harry like I love Harry. I was listening to it the other day and I was like, oh, it does have like a little lack in variety, but I ended up just committing to what it was because it seemed like that dynamic really was what it was. You know what I mean? Like I really like the songs that are wacky on Arse, but it doesn't fit what the album is meant to convey. And this is different than Elkosaurus, and well, obviously because that one's meant to be bad. It has like different intent. But I've been starting to experiment with, and maybe they'll change again. Like it's always dynamic. Like you have different goals for different albums. But lately, I've not wanted. I don't want to wreck the listening and album experience for the sake of including songs that I like. I don't want to let my own interest wreck the art now. This was kind of like a new thing because it used to be like, oh, I like this song, so I have to include it. Or, and this might have been like a new thing that I heard. I remember there's a few songs that were meant to be on Fear of a Blank Planet that Steven didn't include because he said it didn't fit the album. And this might have been for I think it was for Nil Recurring and then Fear of a Blank Planet. But I think also for Stupid Dream, Lightbulb Sun. I don't know if you heard that. Was my recycle. Um, Stupid Dream, Lightbulb Sun, maybe in Signify actually. I don't know for sure. I think Stupid Dream, Lightbulb Sun, the recordings EP. I don't know if it's an EP, but the extras album. That one had songs on it that he really liked. He said he like actually really liked, but it just didn't fit the work. And this was like a new perspective. I think he's mentioned this about albums he likes too. He's like he has favorite albums that are definitive of an artist that he likes, and then there's ones that he likes, and then there's ones where it's like, oh, this is their best. And this is a really cool aspect to look at things. Like, what's like the definitive album of an artist? What's your favorite album of that artist? And then also like, what's the popular album of that artist? Like, there's different ways that you can look at it. It's not just like what's the best. Like, there's different metrics to how you can measure that because it depends on how you look at it. It's like eye of the beholder. I know it's not the right song, like dun 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 dun. Marching forward. I think it's Havoc. Going back to Arse. Yeah, there's a bunch of songs on there that I really like. Like, I thought Valley Mill was cooler than it was. It's very long. That was another thing. Like, a bunch of the songs were just boring to listen to. Like, I really like them, but it just kind of runs on and on and on, and you're like, okay, is this over yet? And for what Harry was meant to be, I didn't want to clutter it with that. It's like, oh, this is a cool song. I executed it well, but it doesn't fit the album. So, like, if you're listening to it, you kind of get confused. You're like, wait, huh? And there's one thing of like proggy and being like out there, but if the intent is not to be like wild, like it was a very specific sound. Like once I realized it, there's like a two-phase part to the album. Like Harry was very dark in the beginning, and I didn't realize this. Also, um, Deep Dive was originally like the third song, but then I was like, wait, it's a very bold statement if I were to put it at the front. And like compared to what the rest of the album says, like, oh, it's like un un untha uncanny, unfathomable, unsomething. There's like unbearable, like I don't know, unbelievable, a bunch of these unwords. Unfart, that's not a word. What would unfart be? I don't want to know. That's weird. Um, but it's like that one for what it was and like how much it didn't like it contrasts a lot. That one kind of like made sense to me, and I don't know why. Like I know that contradicts exactly what I was saying. Like it doesn't fit, so that's why I put it on the album. But like it didn't fit in a different way. um, like maybe for some reason it makes sense to me because it sets up why the rest of the album is the way it is. Maybe that's why it makes sense to me. Like even though it doesn't fit with the rest of the album, it sets up the premise for why the rest of the album is the way it is. Um, it's like I'm being close and honest with myself about like feeling down. Like I think I might have like even like teared up a little bit. Like I don't know if it was like listening to that song. Like now it's like I'm okay with it, but it was like it was very hard to be honest like that, and it was like I feel ridiculous like just saying this. But then like that was like one of my I improvised the lyrics, and now I'm listening back. I'm like, dude, this is awesome. Like I didn't know I could do something like that. And at the time I was like, dude, this is just like cheesy. Like you could re-record it later. Like I was in my room, like, and I was just like recording the vocals in bed. Like I think I tapped out like all this stuff on my phone because I was like, oh, I might have been in bed like just bummed about. I'm gonna have to recoup on why I was bummed about. Like I think it was about like not moving forward and that kind of thing. Harry was about the remember how I was saying like trying new things and like not being scared to do it. Harry was like, or at least deep dive and Harry, what it would become later on the album. It was the realization of like, if I keep going the way I am, like I'm gonna be like this. And what Harry ended up being was like breaking out of that and realizing like you don't have to be scared of yourself, I guess. Like you can feel the way you are. Like I'm realizing this now because now I can look back on it and see this. But like that was like my first glimpse into that. Like, oh wow, like this is me. And then kind of like with the wacky music and stuff, like I guess that harks back to like Elkosaurus, like being just like open and like, wow, this is it. And it wasn't like for the sake of being weird, I guess. Like it's amusing to me and like it feels great to be that. And that's different than something like Orange Paradox because that was just like experimental and uninspired. But this, it was like letting yourself be free to just do what you want. And that's why it sounds the way it is. Because you're just like making a joke or like who cares if it's a joke someone's told all over again? Like you can tell it different or try new things. Like I don't know. Yeah, I covered that. Um, that was really good. Okay, where are we at now? Um, yeah. Wow. Okay. I covered a lot of things. Um, I want to keep talking, but that's a lot of it. Oh, wow. Okay. So I didn't realize this until just now. Thinking about reaction factor, it was always this like I saw this I found this website that like randomly I thought it was randomly generates images, but it randomly finds images on the internet and it found that spyglass like the ship in a bottle kind of bottle thing. Um like when I saw that image for the artwork that has like the window with the smoke and like the green grass inside the bottle and stuff, like it seemed like this metaphor of like, are you gonna let yourself live in this happy world? Or are you gonna be or are you going to allow yourself to live in this happy world? Or are you just gonna like ruminate on like, well, I can't because the world sucks, or like these stupid like are you gonna let yourself get like stuck up in the mud? Or are you gonna like pick yourself up and be like, get the fuck over it? You know what I mean? Like it I'm not saying it's not like I was about to say like, oh, it's not that hard, just get over it. But like it is hard. And maybe that's what I'm realizing. Well, whatever. um, but the thing that I just realized was I didn't realize there was like this two-faced thing again. Like it's almost reaction factor. It has this dual thing like Harry too, but it's more mixed in. Um, things like aqueduct, scopes, desk bulldogs, and maybe chooser groundings. Not really though. Um, those are like on the outside in the smoke, and then the outside in the smoke is kind of like where you when you're toughing it out. Like you're like, I need to get through this. I'm just gonna like push through. Like, and then the goofier songs like fart harog, love in the sand. I guess no, yeah, choose your groundings is a tough one. I didn't really think about that. Um, Mort.gif, absolutely. Color of the crayon is orange, absolutely too. Um, those are like the letting yourself be in the happy area. And this is like after the fact realizing like I didn't realize this duality. Like it's really interesting. Um, because it's not like this was not in the intent of the album. Like the duality of like that's what Reaction Factor was about, where it was like, do you choose to live would you choose to live in a bubble where you know you're happy? Or do you choose to go out and brave the elements? So maybe it's inverse to what I thought. Like ooh, okay, it's different than I thought. So maybe the green is actually the other way around. Maybe it's Aqueduct, Scopes, and Desk Bulldogs. Like this happy world that seems like everything adds up. Where it's like, oh, I live in this house and I have a lawn that is perfectly kept and I am very happy and I do this. I go to the store and I do this and it's like, do you live in like this square world? Oh, that's a cool name. Oh, I'm gonna write that down. Square world. How about Rhombus world? Had to do some vocals real quick. Um, Let me see. Sorry, I didn't mean to scare that guy. Yeah, dude, I totally didn't mean to scare that guy. Let me see. So, dude, I didn't know there was a guy right there. I feel bad. Um, so reaction factor is backwards to what I thought. So, me being in my comfort zone is that bottle. So everything is happy and like you know the limitations, like, and you don't allow yourself to go outside of those walls. Like you only stay within your comfort zone. So the green area in that bottle is a comfort zone. But then if you go beyond the window into the smoke, like it looks very ooh, this is a new realization. Like I always thought it was like, oh, the world is scary. You just have to go out there and face it. But now looking at it, it's like, oh, maybe you just see it as scary. Like maybe it's smoky because they're putting out the fire, or it's not like the world is like over out there. Like so that's a new realization. Like when you're in the bottle, everything seems grand and like perfect, but then like there's limitations. But then if you go out into the world and like see the smoke, it's like, oh, it just all looks dangerous and like, oh, there's only bad things that can come of this. So that's that part was kind of why the album art looked interesting to me. Um, I don't know why the album was so dark though. I don't remember exact. I think it was because like the last few were like so upbeat and like I had to like let loose, you know? Like I was kind of uptight of like things are like very positive or a very specific thing. It's like I'm gonna let myself like be free and just like be sad, or maybe that's related to like the strapping thing too, because like there's like the anger part and then there's like the sad part. It could be that, I guess. Um, and then I still need to make a name for it, but like Zine, the one that's that picture of me and Devi on it when I saw him. Um, that one was rooted in fear. Now that I'm looking at it, because it was like, oh, things are going good, but like there's troubling waters. And then it's kind of like, okay, now I don't know where I'm going, and this is scaring me. And that was related to like trying drinking and things like that, which I covered in the description of it. Um, yeah. Um, I guess I'll cover it real quick. This will need another deep dive too, but growing into your potential self, the one I released in like December recently, that one was about realizing kind of like how I was mentioning, like you can't control things that you've come from. This was me realizing like, oh, I'm the way I am because of the people that have I've been around. You know what I mean? Like, and realizing like, oh, I am the way I am because of that. And I kind of had like this sadness and like anger about it for a bit. And I don't think I want to go into like the details of it. Just like I, I think I'm accepting of it now. And I just don't want to get into it, I guess. Maybe I would like other people, but I don't really want to on here. Um, but like realizing like, oh, you're the way you are because of this. And it's almost like I started like point fingers like, oh, and this is like during the writing of the album. I was like in my brain just like pointing fingers like, oh, this is why I'm like that. And like, oh wow, if they had learned how to do this, then I wouldn't be this way. And then I was kind of just like angry about it. But it's like then I started to realize like, well, they didn't have control over their things either, which I had already kind of known that. But like I was really starting to grasp it. Like you can't blame people for things that they weren't in control over. In the same way that you can't blame yourself for doing things that you weren't able to do. You know what I mean? Like so it definitely goes both ways. Um yeah. I've started to do this too. Like I don't wanna I'm trying to learn about regret because the most I can think of is that I don't have regrets, but I don't think that can be true. Like, how can you not have regrets? Like, the only thing I can think of is like, it's so like dumb that it's like an answer, but it's like anything can bother people. But like, I remember we moved computers when I was younger, and my Minecraft worlds were in there, and like the guy that moved our computers over, I remember specifically mentioning like, oh, you're gonna move my Minecraft worlds over, right? And like, I don't know if I ever got an answer, but I was like too young. Like, how would he know that this kid like that these things are important to him? And like, we moved computers, and I don't know, maybe I even deleted them. Like, I don't even remember for sure, but like, I know that my initial Minecraft worlds weren't there, and like those memories I can't get back. This is the same issue with the music that from before, like that I mentioned in the last podcast. That once you delete things, like they're gone. You can't get them back other than your memories. So the worlds that I grew fondly of from like my history back then, like some of those are just gone because they weren't transferred over and the source hard drive is gone. Like we destroyed it and like there's nothing else you can do about that. The only thing I can think about is like reverse engineering I think it's like 1.7 that I was playing on. Like there's seeds for those that you could get the world again. You won't get your worlds back, but like I mean your creations in the world, but that's the only thing like I do really want to try that. That's the closest thing I can do. Like there's one world that I had that was like the seed, oh, it was so memorable. I loved it. So at some point I want to try and do that. I don't have the skills now to figure that out though. And I didn't have the know-it-all to copy those over myself. So I can't blame myself back then for not knowing how to do it because I was just a kid. Like I wouldn't know how to do that. And like I didn't trust myself with the computers yet. And maybe he didn't know Minecraft saves were saved there and he thought it transferred over and like it was too late. Like you have to move on. But like that's still stuck in my brain like that that's stuck there. So maybe that's like a regret or like something you're holding on to. I don't know. Um but now I'm trying to learn like if you couldn't have done any better, how can you regret it? You know what I mean? Like the only time is like if you choose not to do something specifically like I'm not going to do this because I don't want to or like because this is more important or well that's a different scenario like say if you're like I'm not going to go to this thing because that's more important and then you don't do it and then you miss out and there's like oh that was the last chance to see them because then they ended up moving away or like I wish I would have done that because then it's like well you made that decision because something else was more important. But if you blatantly like if it's out of like fear like oh I don't want to go because I'm afraid of it and then you don't go like I could see regret based on that. But even then, like, how would you blame yourself for something that you haven't gotten over in terms of fear? Like, why would you blame yourself for something that you didn't know how to handle yet? Like, how would you do that? because I don't like, I don't know if it's like an empathy point of view or something. Like, you wouldn't blame somebody for not being able to do something if they didn't learn how to do it. So why would you blame yourself for something that you didn't know how to do back then? Like, if you knew how to do it, you would have done it, or you would have been strong enough or healthy enough to have done it. So why would you blame yourself and like get stuck on not having done it? So, in the same vein of me like living your life as you want to live it as you look back on it, the closest thing to that is, sorry if my tummy's really loud. I'm gassy today. Sorry. um in this dang it. Um my fart distracted me. Um Fudge. Um I'm gonna pause it for a second. I've been pausing a good while. So I've been learning to let go of control of things before I am out of control of them. So I remember hearing the story about how the source material for all of Devin's music got lost. I think it was in a flood, and now he can't go back and like remix things because the source is gone. So he only has the raw mixes, or the final mixes. I'm sorry, and then he like is able to remaster them. That's one thing, but like you have to rebuild the song from scratch, and you lost all the original. Like all the zest is gone. I like to use zest. That's a cool word. It smells like campfire right here. Oh, that smells good. Doesn't smell like fart anymore. Um, so I'm trying to come to terms with things that I can't control before they happen. So, like, say, kind of like living your life as you would want to remember it, you also have to live your life with allowing yourself to accept something will happen, even if it doesn't happen, or if it eventually does, like, or if it never happens, whatever. But you have to accept that it could happen. Like, that's okay. Like, when I go for a run, I'm gonna look 3 times before I cross the street, and I'm gonna do everything I can to be careful out and like I need to work better at like wearing bright clothing or wearing a headlight or like let alone like being safer for your own sake. But like with that in mind, even doing all that, you still have to accept there is a chance, because chance is a thing, that you could be hit by a car and die, or you could lose a leg, or there could be a mountain lion, or you could get stranded and break your leg, or like whatever. Like that's a possibility of happening. Or there could be like a fluke thing, like how there was a young runner where he had a heart attack during, I think it was the marathon, and then I don't know if he died or if he was okay or if he was recovering. Like things can happen, and like you have to accept that there's a premise that it could happen. You don't have to accept that it has happened if it like, I'm saying like beforehand. Like it's not like you have to be like, oh no, I'm gonna have a heart attack, like oh no, like that's not the emotion that you have to accept. It's that like the chance is there. That's all you have to accept before it happens. You don't need to worry. You don't need to go to the extent of worrying about, oh, will this happen? Or I'm sorry, that's the part you have to accept. You don't need to worry about it as if like, oh, it's going to happen. That's the difference. Because that's another thing that I know some people that struggle with this, where it's like they struggle with if something might happen, they fixate on it will happen, and this digs deep into them as a person. And I feel bad that this is the case for them because it really it does hold back their abilities to do new things, I think, and to like not be afraid in certain situations, or you know what I mean. So that's what I've found. It's like you don't want to be ruthless and like disregard the chances. Like, oh, I'm not gonna get hit by a car, so I'm not gonna look. Like that's irresponsible. Like you're just raising the chances that it would happen because you're not being careful. Like you want to lower the chances to try and prevent that it will happen. It will not prevent it from happening. It will lower the chances from it happening. But it could still happen. Like there's freak accidents. And even just like doing things more frequently that are dangerous, that will raise the chances of that being the case. You know what I mean? Like, not drinking is one thing. Like, drinking a little, it's like, it's probably not gonna do much, but like, consistently drinking, like, that's gonna affect your health. Like, I don't know why drinking would be good for your health, but say if someone were to argue that, like, not drinking is inevitably going to change differently. Your health is inevitably going to change if you do drink. Like, in terms of like cause and effect. If a variable changes, there's inevitably going to be an effect. At least I'd like to imagine, unless there's like some loophole in the world that I'm missing. Unless it's like a bug. Let me see. What time is it? Okay, it's been a while. It's like hour and 40. I'm gonna keep going. I think we're almost there. It's getting pretty late. I need to wake up early. I'm gonna have to make artwork for this. I'm gonna post it. Need to go have some dinner too. I did some hash browns earlier though. That's pretty good. Um, yeah. So that's another thing I've been trying to learn is like you just have to accept the chances. You don't have to accept that it will happen or that it won't happen. You just have to accept that it could happen. Like with a lot of different things. Like, um, yeah. And that goes both ways. Like, say if you go up to a girl and then you're like, oh, would you like to go out? Like, you might have the expectations like, oh, she's gonna say no. And then it's like, oh, you seem kind of cool. Like, yeah, I'd like to go out. But then, like, you totally were focused on, like, that she was gonna say no. So you're trying to think, like, oh, how am I gonna convince her? It's like, well, I didn't even think about if she would say yes. Like, I guess it's unrelated. Like, that's a different kind of scenario, but same kind of thing. Like, there's chances for things. And, like, you have to accept that different chances will happen. You know what I mean? This was a good one. This was a really good one. I love doing this. I think I need to do this to let out some of my brain farts. Literally. Um, yeah. All I gotta say is be more authentic. Do the resonant yeses, as Danielle Lynn would say. And as Devin would say, long story longer. Um, just be nice to yourself, do things that you don't want to do, try to do new things, be open with others, lend a hand to people even when they aren't expecting it. And I'm not gonna say like try to do the unexpected. I don't know if that's what I mean. Like maybe I mean like towards your own self. Like don't try to just be like boisterous, like I mentioned before. Like unless it's like meant for fun or something. Like it's fun to be outlandish like that. But I'm saying like try and surprise yourself. Like you're probably capable of more than you think you can. Like that's been the case for me. Like um okay, I guess it's another tangent. Well, like, this is another one we can go down. Um I was at In-N-Out for a while and I have always been a quiet person. I haven't now that I've been vocalizing this, not totally like available to know my emotions, so I didn't know how to vocalize it. Like I wasn't capable of like vocalizing my thoughts because like if people didn't approve of them, then I'd be like, "Oh, that must not be shareable or something." Um Another channel that I found. Speaking of, I found her yesterday. It was mind-blowingly awesome. Um what's her name? Pearly. Pearliee. Very great channel. Very, very great channel. I'm gonna check more videos of hers out. Kind of like Danielle Lynn in a way. A little different, but yeah, definitely check that out too. Um, but yeah, so I've always been like really quiet, and the last thing for me seemed like it would be doing a job with people. And now I'm finding that it's like one of the biggest things that I need in a job. Where like programming is cool because it was like, oh, being at home seems pretty neat. Like that wasn't like a goal of mine, but it's like, oh, everyone says that being at home is cool, so I might as well work towards that. Or like, oh, it sounds easier to not need a degree, so might as well take the smart route and like if I can save money. And then even like that's kind of how I feel too. Like I haven't found the need that I want to get a degree yet. Like I know it's what you're supposed to do, but for the things I want to do, that doesn't seem to be part of the path. Like I want to be like fully devoted to be doing something like that, but I haven't found that drive for that yet. And for me, I need to have the drive to do the thing in order to do it. I can't just be doing it because I'm supposed to. And I don't know if this is my weakness or I remember people like Devin said like turn your weaknesses into your strength. Like that was for Power Nerd. Um that one I've been using a lot lately. That was since the album came out. Excuse me. Um but yeah, that's another one like turn your weaknesses into your strengths. Like just go all in on it. Um but yeah, so not being able to talk with people, I don't know why in and out sound like a good idea. Like the biggest thing was it was far away. The one that I had chose like honestly it was because I was familiar with it. That was the first thing. And then when I was given the opportunity to have a close location or a far location, the far location was the first option. And it was like initially the only option. Like maybe the other ones would have turned out, but the far option, that was like the first thing that came up. And I was like, oh, that sounds great. My parents were like, that's like a dangerous road though. Or um like you'll have to spend gas money. I'm like in the back of my mind, I was like, the best thing for me, I think, was I could be myself in a way that I wasn't worried about because like I was worried if I was being like who I thought I could be in that job. I was worried that I'd like see people from school and then like be a different persona. Like that felt weird to me. Now it doesn't anymore because now I'm closer to home and I see people that I've known for years. Um, but I think that's why it was so cool to me is because it was like this land I could go away to and be a different person. It's like I could be this extrovert that I didn't know I could be. So I like learned how to be sociable around new people. Like people knew me as a different person in this other place. And that was like unbelievably awesome. It was so cool. Like I needed that so bad and I had no idea. Like I didn't want to worry about being who I had been known to be and like see people like that. Like I could grow into this other person because I wasn't worried about trying to be who I had been for the rest of my life. Like now I'm so much of a different person now. Like I'm much more like extroverted. Like I ask like it'll just come up a conversation like, "Oh, are you more extrovert?" Because I'm trying to ask more questions of people. Like, "Are you more extrovert or are you introvert?" And they're like, "Oh, I'm more introvert." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm more introvert too." And they're like, "Oh, wow, I thought you were extrovert." And I was like, "Well, at least I thought I am." And like now I'm like extrovert. It's very odd. Well, like I definitely need my recharge. Maybe everyone's like that. I don't know. I'll have to find out. Like the people that used to be extroverts in my life, they're turning into introverts as well, it seems. That's interesting as well. But like I'm much more valuing of connection with people now than I was before. I don't know if it's because it's just I'm able to connect more than I was before, which actually makes a lot of sense. Like maybe I was struggling with um connecting with people just because I didn't know how, or I didn't learn how to be safe being myself with them. That guy just ran the stop sign. Not very nice. Um, and that's what made it uncomfortable for me because like I felt afraid to be something else because I would afraid it's like, oh, you're acting like something else. But like up there, like I wasn't gonna run into at least as many people that I had seen before. So it was okay for me to try something new. And that felt really great because I could like learn with people there. I do miss it in a way. I think it was healthy for me to leave though. It's a high energy environment, which I think I needed. Like that's a strong suit of mine. it's definitely very draining now. Um, Things are much more free roaming in my new place, which I think I've already brought up. Um, I'm much more able to like one-on-one talk with people, so I can learn like close talking with people. It's not just like a I the strongest thing that was hard for me. First, it was hard talking with people that I didn't know. My first job fixed that because I would learn to talk with customers, and there was like a set of things that you would say. So you would learn like how to connect with people with certain parameters. That was the first stage of things. And then in my new place, I'm able to talk with coworkers because there's time for it. So now I can talk with people and like now I'm learning about them, or maybe they're learning about me, or we're talking about plans we can hang out, or like we can connect on things. So now I'm trying to learn. Now I'm less. Now I know how to talk with people, and now I'm learning like what to talk with people, what to talk about with people, because that was always a struggle for me too. It's like, let alone is it scary to talk with people because you're uncomfortable with yourself around them, but you also don't know like how to conduct yourself. Like I just like this is crazy to me. Like 3 months ago, I didn't know you're supposed to ask questions of people. That's obvious. Like, why not? And like this was just never a thing for me. It was always just like about like, oh, we have this in common, so let's do that. And then when you weren't doing the thing in common, it's like, okay, do you want to do the thing we have in common again? It's like, oh, we both like to hang out and play Minecraft. Let's go play Minecraft. It's like, oh, let's go to the pool. It's like, well, pool's not my favorite thing. It's like, let's, we should still go. It's like, yeah, but I don't want to go to the pool. It's like, doesn't matter. Like, you're there with them. That's the goal. But because I was uncomfortable with people, that was holding me back this whole time. I don't know if this is because I am an only child, which is probably apparent just with my like rambling and like independence and like probably like too strong of a need to be independent. That's kind of like that's one of my power nerd kind of weaknesses. Like I'm using that to be strength, like full of strength myself, but I want to learn how to like cooperate with people. Like that's my weakness now. Like I can see how I can be strong independently, but I can only go so far. Like if we can both be independent together, then we're even stronger. Like whoever it is, if it's like a friend or like a girlfriend or wife or kids or whatever, like eventually down the line, like, you know what I mean? Like connecting with people, that's the whole point. Because now you can do more together than you could alone. Um, I'm gonna talk about some more albums that I found recently. Um, yeah, so Sunset Mission, talked about that. Casualties of Cool, Time of Orchids, Time of Orchids, Melon Whisper. That album was like way out there, even though it's like up my alley. It was like weird. And I was like, this kind of sucks to listen to. That's the one bummer. It's like I love how experimental it is, but it kind of sucks to listen to. And I mean that like the song is kind of long, or it's like a long weird noise. Or Adam Neely mentioned like um sometimes an album or a song is being musicked the wrong way. And I tend to listen to my music now because of the time I have available in the car or with headphones or something. Usually with headphones, like an album is good to listen to. A lot of my loud music I like in the car more than at home. Like at home in bed, I listen to ASMR or like prog or something. And even in the car, like if it's like a rainy day, like a cool day, that'll be a prog day. But if it's like hot out, like I found that I'm more of like in a metal mood. That guy's going way too fast. Um, yeah, Melon Whisper is really good. Um, and then Infantefant, Psycholycopocalypse. Yeah, I gotta listen to that album more because I know I will love it, but I haven't clicked with it yet. Um, LKFFCT, We All Hold It Up Together. That one is like, oh, it's great. I don't know if it's like indie sounding. It's not usually my jam, but now I'm trying to realize like something doesn't have to be your jam to enjoy it. Like I think that's how I'm gonna get into rap eventually too. Like just because something isn't like your thing It can be. That's the thing. That's exactly like the interesting part is like this relates to what I was just talking about, like doing like only playing Minecraft with friends because that's the only thing you have in common. Like that's the thing. Once again, like you have to try that new thing with your friend because they like it. Not because it's what you're supposed to do or to be nice or to please them or for your ego or like to get them to like you. Like it's to learn more and to you might like it as well and you had no idea. That's the goal. Um yeah, so I'm finding now that I like calm music, I like folk music, I like death metal, uh, I like classic prog, of course, like Rush and stuff like that. Like there's a bunch of like Pink Floyd, Rush. Um yeah, I could go back into that too. But yeah, like I'm finding I'm liking indie music a lot. Um I got Future Bites. I'm realizing I'm liking that album a lot more now too. Um it's kind of a bad word, but maggot twat stuffed animal orgy. That sounds very odd, I know, but it's a very like hardcore album and it kind of sounds like strapping and it's full bore and I love it. It's great for the car. Like if you have a frustrated day, just blast that. Like maybe this is like my ego, but I feel like it's like healthy ego. Maybe it's not, but right now it's still part of me. And maybe it's just me like exercising my comfort zone. Like I don't like to be like looked at. Like it kind of like if I'm playing loud music, it was like oh they're looking at me. But now I'm kind of like oh yeah like look at me whatever. Like this is my music. Get over it. So like I don't know if that's like a young guy thing, but now I'm like oh blast the music with the windows down. Like don't care at all. Like don't give a fuck. Like you know what I mean? Like so maybe that's like immature of me, but like I'm in that stage right now, like where it feels great to like if people are like, whoa, what album is that? Maybe I'm just making a scene of myself and it's kind of like, like uh, maybe that's not ideal, but it's it's getting me out of it makes me feel great. You know what I mean? Like and I in a funny way, it's like, oh, maybe they'll check out that album. It's like as I'm driving by, they'll like SoundCloud it and like, oh, hey Siri, what's that song? And it's like, but there's no way they're gonna do that. Like it's like some grandma walking her dog, and then there's just like this truck going by. There's no way she's gonna pick up on that. Like, oh, I love to listen to maggot twat. Like, no, dude. And I'm saying maggot. I'm not saying the other thing. Like, I don't know. Yeah. Check out Field Music. That's another great one. It's kind of like, I think somebody said like 80s pop or something. It's not 80s, but um, open here. I need to check out the rest of the album because I like the more pop songs that has like guitar and stuff. There's a lot of like open piano songs or like strings and that kind of thing. I haven't quite clicked with it, but I know it's really good. That's another thing. I mean, kind of like how I was mentioning with Steven, like there's songs that are really good that might not be your favorite or something. Um, I'm trying to like also build my catalog on things that I know are great, regardless of whether I like them. Because sometimes there's like things where it's like, oh, this is just like boring or like simple or so I'm trying to ignore those things. Like there's things that I know are great, but maybe I just haven't clicked with yet. Or maybe I just don't understand. That's different than not liking it. And I don't like when things are disingenuine. I'm trying to learn like I wonder if there's a way to get over that. I don't know why you would get over that though. Like I feel like that's a good quality. So maybe I'll have to look into that too. Like liking pop music even though you know it's for the sake of being popular. And maybe that's my own misunderstanding too. Like, is pop music meant to sound the way it does because it gets clicks or because it gets traction or because it will make people like it? Like, is that ego driven? Because that's what I'm afraid of. Like, if music is made for the sake of pleasing your ego or making people like you or like that kind of thing just makes me feel yucky, you know? And that's the kind of stuff where if music sounds a certain way and I think it's for that intent, that's when I stay away from it. But maybe that's my own radar, like picking up on things that aren't actually there. You know what I mean? Like maybe they're not like that, and I just think it is. So that's another thing I want to learn. Like maybe you can start to like disregard the intent of a project and just like it for it as the art. That's another because that's another power nerd thing. Like a power nerd thing of like, oh, I really like things that are genuine, so I'm gonna follow those. But it would be really great too if I could learn how to like music for what it is rather than the intent behind it. Because that's one of my things. Like the music's intent is what drives me to like it. That seems to be the case. But maybe I can like music for what just simply, like it sounds cool or it's catchy or I don't know if that like is that how some people are? Like that seems foreign to me. Like I know that's how people have described it as. It's like, "Oh, this song is catchy," or like, "Oh, it's stuck in my head and I really like it," or "It makes me feel good." Like maybe that's just an emotional thing again. Like I'm unable to connect to the emotion of like this song makes me feel good and that's why I play it. So maybe that's another thing that I had just connected around to. Like maybe that's the reason why I like the music I do because it makes me feel good. And I'm just coming up with all these boisterous reasons on why I like it just because it allows my brain to go because it's fun to think of things. That could be an answer too. Like maybe all of my thinking out loud like this is just fun because it makes me think and it like makes me feel better or it's cathartic. That's the word. Um maybe it's not even the actual truth. Like maybe you're just coming up with reasons on why you like something rather than just you like it. Because it sounds like when I talk to people, they're like, "Oh, why does there have to be a reason for everything?" I'm like that's another thing I've been catching up on uh, is there what do you think? Like, I don't know if this put it in the comment or something. If you're still somehow here after 2 hours and 1 minute, um, do you think there's a reason for everything? I'm not saying that like everything is predetermined and that there's like a reason for everything, but I'm saying like, do you think everything is driven by cause and effect? Like, what do you think? Um, I think some extent, yes. Like, it's kind of like the bottle thing earlier. Like, you do reach the edges on like where you don't know the cause, but I feel like you can at least start at the effect. Like, even if you don't know the cause, there's always like a start to it. Like this, going back to JavaScript again, like the object prototype, it all starts with null. Null itself is technically an object, but like an object is a prototype of an object, and then it gets down to null. Like in that case, null is the end all be all. But like for the world, like say if it was like if you believe in like Big Bang or things like that, like I don't I guess I do. Like I don't know enough about science and stuff like that to have a definitive decision. Honestly, that's me. Like I just don't know how you, I can't make a complete statement on it because I don't know enough. I guess I believe in that being the case, like that it makes sense that there's evolution, things like that. Like that adds up in my mind. I also don't know though, because I've only been around since 2003. Like I could be in the Matrix, you know what I mean? So that explains a lot of my beliefs too. Like a lot of it is fact driven, where it's like if I can explain it, then I will stand behind it. But if I can't explain it or it doesn't add up, then like I can't stand behind it. So then that goes to the whole question of like everything is like that. Like if you keep going up the chain, you inevitably get to an answer that you don't have, or you inevitably get to a question that you don't have an answer to. And that's with everything. So if there's always that root, like, does that mean you don't believe in the world existing? Like, I mean, you could, and some people do. Or maybe you're like, oh no, that's unreasonable. Like, you're here right now. Like, and maybe it's just like Schrodinger's cat. Like, you just don't know. Like, it exists or it doesn't. Like, so, and maybe just what you choose to believe is like how you go throughout the world. Like, that makes sense to me. Like, I would choose what I believe to use how I function through my daily life. Like that makes sense too. Like if people go to certain ceremonies or things like that, like because it helps them cope with their emotions because they don't know how to, or because they connect with their family that way, or they get good morals and they teach their kids that way, or it's like a cultural thing, and like it connects with everybody, and it's like, you know what I mean? Like, or or it's just your belief outright. Like that's a whole other thing. Like that's kind of my thing. Like to each their own. Like just because there is no answer, or because you think there is an answer, or if you think there is no answer, like it all goes down to like we're still humans and we're still making opinions. That's my opinion, so I could be wrong. So it's like a recursive paradox thing again because um okay, ooh, I meant to talk about this. I believe that you should accept that your opinion could be wrong. And I also believe that about that opinion. Does that make sense? So I could be wrong about my opinion on that. And I stand behind that. Because, like, maybe there's cases where that's not true. So, yeah. Oh, I didn't get to talk about AI. Let's not get into that. We're at 2 hours in. Um, I could do this again. I could do this all day. Um, okay, leaving this note for myself. What am I gonna leave off on? I wanted to talk about streaming subscriptions, um, like owning your own content, like in terms of like your media that you like or historical purposes. Kind of like I mentioned before, like to me, if you lose something that means a lot to you and it was within your control, or you have the option to have it in your control, why wouldn't you? Like, say if it's like, okay, I guess I'm getting into it a little bit, but I'm prefacing this so I can expand on it later. Um, why would you not want to pay for music so you can own it outright? Because, like, how are you going to show music to your kids later on if it got taken down from the streaming service? Like, to me, that is like really a bummer that, like, it's not, you didn't choose to put it within your control. Or, like, if you didn't back up your phone because, like, why wouldn't you? Um, okay, so okay, I guess we're gonna get into it. Just real quick, I'll probably expand on this again later on. Um, because it's right here in my brain. I gotta get rid of it. Gotta get rid of it. Like subscriptions, I don't like that they tie you in indefinitely because and maybe it makes sense like for things that you use and use and use. Like say if it's like I was realizing this when I signed up for cellular service, like for my cell plan. If it's like a utility, like you're consistently using it, so you always need it. That's one thing. But like it's not like you're gonna get that back. Like you're using it and then like that's it. It's not like, oh no, the data that I used 4 years ago, I want to see that data again. It's like, no, you streamed it, you learned from it, like you watched that video, you downloaded that thing, like you've exhausted that need for that. Oh, so oh, it's treating music as a utility rather than something that you will use to embody you. Maybe that's a bigger like maybe that's what I don't like about it. That actually makes a lot of sense. Maybe I'm just trying to come up with answers, but I hadn't thought about it that way. Like if cellular data, you buy it, you use it, it's gone. You pay for next month, so you buy it and then you use it, it's gone. That's one thing. But music, you want to listen to again. So why would you exhaustively use that if you want to listen to it again? Maybe that's where it comes in for me. For me, music means a lot because you can come back to it, reflect with it. It's a memory. It's something you connect with. It's what you would want to share with people. But maybe to other people, it's just casual, like it is a utility. So I hadn't looked at it that way. Well, I think I'd mentioned before, I don't know if I'm on here, but like music means different things to different people. Maybe it doesn't mean that to people. Where it's like maybe it is just a utility to them. Like they use it to relax. Or like say if you like paid for YouTube videos, like and you didn't want to watch the video again. Like you paid for the video, you watch it, okay, that's it, whatever. Like that makes sense, I guess. So, mm, maybe the underlying thing is it's driven by people not wanting to use music as something to reflect with anymore. And maybe that's what's uncomfortable to me too. Like it's baffling to me that people wouldn't want to use music to like look back on. But that's because that's how I do it. So through my eyes, that seems ridiculous. So to me, it seems more important to buy my music outright because then I can always have it with me and like I don't have to worry about it being gone or taken away or even just like having like your data on the cloud or something. Like if somebody does an update and then like it messes it up, and I'm not being like hypothetical, like there's just like things change. Like Google Photos, like it was unlimited storage and then they just made it not. It's like that specifically changed over time. And it was within someone's control that they did that. Like it's one thing if your hard drive fails because you neglected it. But like if you back up like the 3 to 2 to 1 ratio rule or like that kind of thing, like that's more of like a decay kind of thing than of people changing terms over time. Like unless there's like some malfunction or something, like that's not intended. Um, your hard drive isn't just gonna like stop working because it was designed to stop working, or like because Seagate was like, oh, we're gonna change how the hard drive works, so we're gonna push an update to your hard drive, and then it's just gonna stop working. Like, oh, your hard drive used to be 5 terabyte, now it's 3 because you stopped paying for the subscription. It's like that's not how that works. Like you bought the storage, so and maybe that kind of like lines up with like renting and stuff like that too. Maybe it is just like the quick buck. Like maybe that's what they're. It's just like maybe maybe it is just companies cashing in on people not knowing the other side of it. Like if you don't pay your credit on time, there's like interest. So same with like if you don't buy your music outright, like they can change the terms on you and like they can change the service or they can shrink your Google Drive because they're spending too much. So like they can do that. Like and if it doesn't matter for some people, then like then who's gonna care? But like if it does matter for some people, then like then you're screwed. Like the terms changed on you because someone else decided it. But like I think they're and maybe this is a bold statement, but like I'm just thinking it outright. Like this could be true or wrong or whatever. Like they're hypothetically they're cashing in on people not knowing that there's another side to things that you could have control over the things you care about. Like it doesn't need to be within their wheelhouse, like on their servers or this is the one thing like about password managers too. Like I don't like I want stuff to be secure. I agree. Like but then you're locked into the ecosystem again. Or like then you're paying like I don't know if password managers cost. I haven't looked into that. It would make sense if they're a subscription because everything else is. But like then if you're like stuck then you're locked into like the password manager. So like if they change their terms or like if something happens, like if they lose their data, like ideally it would be encrypted if they were to program it right or if they're a competent company. But like once again, it's putting it in someone else's terms. Like so what if you had like your local only password manager? That's probably a thing. I might even look into that. Or like say if you wanted to move away from the Apple ecosystem, if you use Apple's specific um password manager, then you're stuck in their ecosystem again. And this is the same thing with like using handoff or like airdrop. Like that's what I'm glad about RCS too. Like I was almost thinking the other day, like what if I got an Android phone? But I'm like, I don't need that right now. Like, um, yeah. Uh, I guess like distributing things like, oh, I was gonna talk about my iPod. Um, I like having single-use devices. Like I realized I have my iPod Shuffle. I was listening to music on it last night, and it really is great to have a single-use device that's really good at what it does, and it does it very well. It like it doesn't have distractions for what it is. Um, I think I want to try going back to that. I know this isn't like realistic. Like at one point, like the technology was like too like big to need to do that, or um like it wouldn't make sense to have like a home computer that was like it was like the Apple II and stuff like that. Like you wouldn't have like a bunch of different tech. Like that would be insanely expensive. But like nowadays, like tech is so common. Like it would be cool to have like small single-use devices again. Like, and my Mac is really good at what it does, but I'm not gonna like bring it everywhere to do everything. Like if my Mac had cellular, I wouldn't use that instead of my phone. Like just because it can do like, oh, it can do Logic, like Logic Pro, I mean. It can like do Chrome, it could have cellular, like you could call on it, you could do FaceTime, like you could do Instagram, you could do Snapchat, you could like edit, like just because it does everything doesn't mean it's really good at it. And this maybe this is a trade-off between like, oh, this is interesting. I'm a jack of all trades person, but I see the value in having tech that's um master of one. So that's kind of interesting too. I wonder if I wonder what the if there's I'm probably just making up a correlation, but like I wonder what the percentages of people are like if someone is a jack of all trades, do they like having things distributed, or like say if someone's like a master of one, like and they're like really good at one thing, I wonder if they like having like multi-use devices or having a like a subscription that does like everything, or that kind of like is interesting. I'm gonna have to look into that. That's okay. Last thing, I gotta be done here. This is taking way too long. Ask ChatGPT these questions because it has some great insights. Like I don't even know. It could be making it up, whatever. Like it could be fake. It could be lies. It could be true, whatever. Like you already should be doing this kind of like thought analysis on these kind of assumptions within your own mind or when you're searching the internet. But like just see what it says. Like once again, it doesn't hurt. Like it could be wrong, whatever. Just choose what you want to believe about it. So search on ChatGPT, like just put these questions in. Like, do you think there's any correlation between master of one people and having single use devices, or uh people that like what was I saying? Like the jack of all trades, like I like to think that I'm jack of all trades. Like it seems like it makes sense, but then again, I thought I was introvert, but I'm getting better at it. Um, well, I guess I see it as a not a good thing then. Well, it is a good thing because then you can be close with yourself, I guess. I wonder if extroverts have trouble like self-care. I'll have to look into that too. That's the kind of thing. Like just ask ChatGPT these kinds of things because it's like as if you were to ask Google things that it could put together and extrapolate for you. Because when you ask Google this, it just like searches the terms. And it doesn't always come up with things because not all the words are in like all the articles. But so for some reason, I don't know, all these big data models, like they can like come up with these kind of things. And whether or not it's like true, once again, like just choose whether you want to believe it or whether you want to follow in what it's saying, or it's up to your own discretion. That's another whole point. Like AI isn't bad. It's just how you choose to use it. Like any tech, anything in the world, like anything is bad if it's too much of it or if it's used for the wrong intent. Like if you eat too much, if you eat too many vegetables, like you could. Oh, I'll have to look into that too. I don't know the answer to that. I was gonna say like if you eat, that's an obvious one. Like if you eat too much Burger King, like you're gonna get bigger, and then you'll have like health issues or you have trouble running more. But like if you eat too many vegetables, I don't know what the answer is for that. I was trying to find more of a outlandish question, but um like too much of anything is bad. So even just like too much of like this talking, like I should go home and rest because that would I need to rest for tomorrow. So this has been a very helpful session, but I think I need to call it because now I'm just in this think train. Yeah, this was fucking outstanding. I gotta finish right at the time because it's my number. All right. Love you. Take care of yourself, and I will see you soon. Bye.